Fuck me. Of course there's some asshole in a fucking car. Fuck you. Oh, okay, she's fast. Happy Lion. Mr. Lion is happy. Because Leon Loco has a new motorcycle. That's right. And if you've been following my Instagram feed, you know what it is. It's a KTM Super Duke. Yep. It's mine. It's got 12 miles on it. So, this is the first ride. Notwithstanding my having taken it around the block at my shop just to make sure all the bits were screwed together. But this is the first real ride. And this is actually my first new bike in quite a while. I buy, you know, a fair number of bikes last year, but all of them were used. This is the first new bike I bought in some time. And, well, time for a review. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ride it a while before I actually give anyone my honest opinion on it, because one thing that really drives me nuts is people who take a bike out and they ride it for like 5 miles and say it's either the best bike in the history of the world or the worst. I don't know if that annoys anyone else as much as me, but I hate that shit. So, initial impressions. It is fast. It is very fast. I really quite like the instrumentation. You know, it's not as nice to look at perhaps as like a Ducati Panigale or something with a really nice color LCD dash, but it is very well laid out, and it gives me a bunch of stuff that I really like to have on a bike, which a lot of bikes don't do, like all the temperatures. So this actually gives me oil temperature, air temperature, battery voltage, all kinds of cool shit that I just like to be able to have a look at from time to time. And a fuel gauge too. Very few bikes have a fuel gauge anymore. Certainly in the superbike and kind of naked super sport market. And on like a supermoto or something, just forget about it. Yeah, she does go. Early impressions, yeah, I mean, there really isn't anything I don't like yet. I haven't quite made up my mind on the mirrors. They work very well as mirrors. You can see great out of them. But they do look kind of a bit dorky, these big gravitier kind of things. So I may or may not get rid of those. Other stuff, well, the license plate mount on the back looks ridiculous, but that's par for the course with pretty much any bike these days, so that's going to go away. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that I don't like. Nope, that's it so far. I like that it's, you know, it's got a little bit of technology on it. It's got ABS and it's got traction control, but it's actually set up with the rider in mind, in that it's got like supermoto mode for the ABS. Excuse me, which is what I have it in right now, and that lets you slide the rear end a little bit without getting into full ABS while still keeping it on the front wheel, and I think that's great. I wish more bikes would do it like that. So I think when KTM designed this thing, their whole deal was, okay, we're going to make like the ultimate supermoto. We're going to make like a really, really badass supermoto, and yeah, it's quite a bit heavier than a dirt bike base supermoto. It's over 400 pounds, 420 pounds I think wet, which isn't that bad, but it's not exactly a superbike light, and it sure as hell isn't dirt bike light. Of course it makes up for that by having 180 frickin' horsepower. So if you don't know anything about the Super Duke, that's pretty much its party piece. A ridiculous amount of power and a fairly lightweight, simple, naked bike kind of deal. And I guess my first early impression is that it's really easy and comfortable to ride. You know, a lot of people, you know, it's called the Beast and it's a Widowmaker and it's going to kill you, and if you're a newbie rider, that's probably right, but not because it's terrifying, but because it's really fast and easy to ride, and wonderfully comfortable. The seat, the riding position, the bars, you could ride this thing all day. In fact, I probably will, and you're not going to have a sore anything. About the only problem I have right now is it's a little bit cold. It is mid-November up in the Northeast, and the dash says it is 57.3 degrees, which doesn't sound so bad if you're walking down the road, but when you're doing 82 miles an hour on a motorcycle, it's a bit nippy. But hell of a lot better than 48 or 47 or whatever the hell. Yeah, 10 degrees colder and this would not be as enjoyable. So yeah, KTM Super Duke. Impressions so far, I quite like it. And right now I'm just taking it a little bit easy because I want to scrub the tires in a bit. They're a bit greasy because everything's new. And yeah, I'm gonna ride it around and tell you guys what I think about it eventually. I suppose one thing I can start talking about is running in a motorcycle, breaking it in. And there's a lot of people who have different opinions on how to go about that. You know, you can follow the dealer recommended take it easy for a couple hundred miles, or you can do what I'm doing, which is go really fast. And in my experience, and I'm a bike mechanic, you know, I've built many motorcycle engines and many car engines over the years and broken them in many different ways on like race cars and street cars, you name it. And in my experience, the first 20 miles or so are the most critical. There you want to progressively load the piston rings more and more. You don't want to take it easy because then you're not going to get a very good ring seal. You want to start off with like, you know, maybe half throttle up to about half of the rev range, and you want to work your way up to 3/4 throttle, you know, with a bit more of the rev range, and you want to get finished at oh fuck you, why the hell did you close this road? Oh, that's great. Well, I guess I'm going the long way around. Anyway, you want to finish up using full throttle to redline, and you want to obviously either keep it accelerating, maybe not obviously, you want to either keep it accelerating or decelerating a lot. That's A, when you're decelerating, it's going to suck oil up and lubricate the rings really well and the cylinder bores, and when you're accelerating, it's going to put a lot of cylinder head pressure in, which is going to help force the rings into the cylinders and give you a good ring seal. So, you definitely don't want to baby it. I have tried that. It just never worked out for me. I always got, you know, an engine that would use a bit more oil than it should, and generally didn't run as well as one that I gave the beans a bit. Yeah, so that's the first thing. I guess that mirror's not so wonderful. Let's see if I can pull over and deal with that. The first thing I don't like so much is the mirrors. Now, granted, that's probably not KTM's fault. I took the mirrors off because I didn't ride it back from the dealer. I went and took it home in my van just because it was really cold that day and I didn't really feel like fucking around in this thing when it was like 42 degrees. Find a little place where I can turn off here and unfuck this mirror. I suppose one thing I should talk about, you know, one thing I can mention right off the get-go is that, come on. That's probably where it needs to be, more or less. Oh, fuck me. Of course there's some asshole in a fucking car. Fuck you. Oh, okay, she's fast. Whew. Anywho, what I was gonna say there is, the first thing is, this is not my first KTM, but it is my first non-dirt bike KTM. And, it's got an interesting feel to it. It's very, I want to say kind of BMW-y. You know, very precise. Everything is kind of really screwed together well. And, you know, KTM kind of gets a bad rap for the dirt bikes. And deservedly so in some ways. They are a little bit, I don't want to say fragile, but they break more than Japanese bikes. They just do. It's not quite as silly as like some of the Italians like Aprilia or Beta, which tend to break something every other week. But they definitely are not as reliable as Japanese bikes. And I don't know how this is going to be, but I haven't really heard any horror stories. I've heard from some people that the horn stops working, but mine works. So we'll see about that. And it's probably kind of early to be talking about reliability when I now have 26 miles on this thing. But rest assured, I will let you all know if it goes kaboom. The rear brake is quite a bit lower position than I am used to. I might have to adjust that. It definitely handles well. I mean, this is a pretty twisty, freaky little road here. Usually really big, powerful sport bikes don't like this so much because it's really twisty and really slow speeds, the corners, unless you're going flat out, which on the public roads anyway is kind of fucking stupid in my world. But this thing just eats it up. Crackle and popping out of the exhaust, even with the cat on it. It is completely stock, this thing right now. I'm probably going to ditch the cat just because I don't like how hot it runs down there with the cat on it. And, you know, extra horsepower too wouldn't go amiss. Not that this thing needs any more than it currently has, frankly. Yeah, it's fast. Like, really fast. It's probably sacrilegious to a lot of KTM people, but it feels a lot like my Monster S2R, just with, you know, twice the power, probably a bit more than twice the power. No, actually, probably about exactly twice the horsepower as the Monster S2R, and it weighs about the same and handles very similarly. You know, it's just kind of the muscle bike version of a Monster, I guess, even though the current Monsters are getting a hell of a lot faster than mine is. But that's kind of like the riding position and kind of the overall feel of the bike, is it's a really big, silly monster. Hence, the beast. Hands are getting a little bit numb on this thing, which is rare for an upright riding position, but it also is kind of cold, so I might turn the heated grips on in a minute. see if that helps. And that's another first for me on a bike, heated grips. I rode a BMW S1000 that had them, which I thought was a comical thing to have on a sport bike, or really any bike. But if you're extending your season out in the Northeast here when it's like pretty nippy on the hands, it does let you enjoy the bike more. It's got a really, even with a completely stock exhaust, it's got a really hooligan-y bellow to it, like "Argh!" It's like Tom Jones gargling a chainsaw, to rip off Jeremy Clarkson there a little bit. Now it's the mid-range on this bike is really interesting, where you know, you open the loud handle from like 5,000 revs or whatever it is, and you know, it picks itself up. It's like you get a big glove of torque, and then it just takes the fuck off. You know, you get it over 8,000, and it's like, okay, there's that 180 horsepower I've been reading about. And yeah, early impressions. It feels like it shouldn't be as nimble as it is. You got this massive tank here, but it's actually quite nimble and bouncy, and really not a problem to chug around on in any way, shape, or form. The bike just kind of disappears under your belt, I guess, is a good way of putting it. Nice day to go riding, though, I gotta say. It's kind of tank is kind of grinding into my inner thighs a little bit. I don't know if that's just how I'm sitting on the bike, or that's just how it is. It's not hugely uncomfortable, but I am noticing it. Whereas the Monster doesn't do that. Of course, the Monster doesn't do this either. And the Monster's quick, don't get me wrong, but this thing is fast. That, I suppose, is the best way of putting it. The difference between a quick bike and a fast bike is the difference between a Monster S2R and a KTM Super Duke. It just eats up the frickin' road, wow. Very confidence-inspiring on corner entry. I would have thought with the rear tire as massive as this one, it would be a bit more of a thing to kind of shuffle into the corners, but nope. You know, the suspension's really nice. I mean, I don't know a lot about WP. I'm mostly an Öhlins guy and a Showa guy, but this thing, it's sucking it up, you know, it's nimble, it's compliant, and it's also not bouncing my kidneys out, so got that going for me. Come on, go away. Go away. I'm just gonna say, fuck you, goodbye. So far, the ABS is not letting me know it's there, which is a good thing. Actually has the same ABS system as the Panigale of all things, so they really didn't cheap out on the bits. And they shouldn't have. I mean, it is a $17,000 bike. Well, 17 plus, depending on which model you get. They have like an adventure touring one now, and then the brand new one just came out. This isn't the 2017, where they did a few things. They went to like an LED headlight and gave it a color LCD dash and some crap like that, but fundamentally it's still the same bike. I didn't really want to spend an extra, you know, $5,000 for that and then wait, you know, another 6 months for it. I wanted one now. So I bought this one. And I got a pretty good deal. You know, I'm not gonna say what exactly I paid, but it was a good deal. It was worth doing. But it's still an expensive bike, so I guess it shouldn't surprise me that they use such good components on it, and it feels like an expensive bike. You know, it doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like, okay, where the fuck did that extra 10 grand go? Because it sure as hell isn't in the bike. It doesn't feel like that at all. It's geared very, very high. It's at 80 miles an hour. I'm not even in 6th gear. I'm only in 5th. At 4,500 RPM, I go to 6th. I'm down at 4,000 at 80. That's awesome. I love that. A lot of bikes I have are just geared so bloody high. You're always rubbing the nuts off of them on the highway. And this is geared very nicely. I like it. And it's also, even in the twisties, it's not geared so high that it's, you know, you're lugging it or shifting the nuts off of it every 5 seconds. Very well geared. That's well done there, KTM. Still full of fuel. The fuel gauge hasn't gone down at all, and I've put, you know, 30 miles on it. So, I guess it's got a pretty big fucking tank. Go for 6 here. Yeah, 4,000 RPM at 80. I'm loving that. This thing would be great for a road trip. If anyone's wondering about the ABS light blinking on the dash, it's supposed to do that. That's because I've got it in supermoto mode. And it does a slow blink to let you know that you actually can slide the rear up a little bit in that mode. That's becoming a pretty standard thing. I mean, Ducati does that now on the Panigale, and I'm sure pretty much everyone does a variation of the same sort of deal. So far, I like it. Nice and easy to find neutral. I really appreciate that in a bike. So many things, you know, I'm looking at you, Aprilia, are such a pain in the ass to find neutral, and even Ducati. Even some of my Japanese bikes. They do not like finding neutral when they're hot. Or in some cases, at all. This thing doesn't mind at all. It's like, yep, there's neutral. There you go. Yeah, well, I think about the only downside of this thing so far, aside from the mirrors, which I'm starting to be annoyed with, is it's really easy to go really fucking fast. It does not feel like you're doing 50 miles an hour, you know, in a, I won't say, in a substantially slower area than that. You know, you look down and it feels like you're doing maybe 40, and you're doing 75. You know, which in a 35 zone probably is going to get you a few friends that you'd rather not have. Oh, I just lost my first bar on the gas gauge at 41 miles. So less the 7 or so, yeah. About 35 miles per dot, it seems to be, which is pretty ridiculous, because that means I've got another, you know, 150 miles of range on this thing, if that's to be believed. Well, I guess with a big-ass tank, that's plausible. I mean, I'd believe that. It is, even in traffic going slow, I'm just following all these boneheads going 40 miles an hour. It's not tiring. You know, it deals with the bumps quite well. Again, you know, shout out to WP. I mean, they make a pretty damn good suspension. I didn't know very much about them prior to buying this bike, and I still really don't. But it's pretty good. I would say it's easily on par with the kind of half Showa, half Olin setup on my Monster. Easily. I'm just going to be a naughty boy here. Do this. Yeah, it is a hooligan bike. It's kind of got that BMW GS thing where you don't really use a lot of revs to take off, and you're immediately shifting through the gears just to suck up all that torque band. And it really accelerates really fast, but if you look at it, like I'm sure if you look at the video, it doesn't look like I'm going very fast there, when in fact I'm doing 5 miles. Bitch, look! It doesn't look like I'm going very fast, but I'm going from like a crawl, like 5 miles an hour to 50 in, I don't know, 2-3 seconds with like a very light throttle. Just using all that torque, you don't really have to rev the nuts off of it to get it to go anywhere, unlike, I guess, a Japanese bike. Come on, go around him. Go around him. Or, well, a Japanese bike, but really any high-strung, short-stroke, rev it to Mars kind of engine, whereas this is this big Orkin V-twin. And it is big. It's probably the first thing I should mention is it's the largest displacement bike I own. Only by about 50 cc's now, and I'll get into that in another video, but still, it is the biggest. Well, all the trees here still have leaves. What the hell? Other side of the hill where I live, everything is, it's like Chernobyl again. There's no leaves anywhere. Whatever. What the fuck are you even doing? Okay, let's just run into fucking traffic, because that's sane.
2 hours later.
So, I've got about, just approaching 60 miles now on the KTM Super Duke. And I think I can talk a little bit more intelligently about it now that I've ridden it a fair bit. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm really glad I bought it. It's one of those bikes where you had certain preconceptions about how it was going to be, and in some ways, and in all the right ways, it is exactly like that. It's a really big motard, is what it feels like, with way more fucking power than it knows what to do with. Certainly than I know what to do with. But it's really comfy. It's really nice to just chug around, whether you're out here in the twisties hauling ass, or you're just chugging around, running errands. It's just an all-around really good motorcycle. Nothing dramatic, really. Nothing scary, aside from how fast it goes. But it doesn't have any bad handling habits. Brakes are really good. I mean, I've ridden better brakes, but all on race bikes. For a naked bike, something just to play with, go fast, ride like a hooligan. A daily bike is what this is. And it's a really good one. I mean, a really good one. I can't think of really anything this bike doesn't do well. That's the interesting part. It's like everything it does is good, so far. Horn still works. It's fast as a bitch, holy Christ. You forget when you're just chugging around, using the torque bands and quick shifting it like a GS or something, you forget what's still there. Most of the time I'm probably using like 30-40 horsepower on this thing. And then you do that, and it's like, god damn. It is fucking fast. However, manageable. It's easy to ride this bike. That's possibly why it's got such a reputation as a widowmaker, because it tricks a lot of novice riders into getting in over their head, I imagine, if there are a lot of novice riders on this thing, which who knows. I imagine not, but I can see how front end came up there. That was like fourth fucking gear, and it picked the front end up. Good God. does egg you on, this thing. It's like, no, go faster. But if you do that, you can feel what's lurking. It's a really great ride, I gotta say. And a different, I mean, it's, I know I compare it to a Monster a lot, but it's kind of got its own kind of personality too. I mean, it's, yes, from an overall design standpoint, it's a really big angry monster, but it's also part sport bike, part cruiser, certainly, and how comfortable it is, and the heated grips and all that kind of crap, and part touring bike. And you know, actually KTM now has their own version of this thing, which is a touring bike, which has like luggage on it and shit. Not really my thing, that's not why I bought this. But you can see, it really would not be difficult or annoying in any way to take this on like a 400 or 500 mile road trip, or longer. It likes getting down. I have more immediate lean angle confidence in this bike than just about anything else I can think of. It just wants to get down into the corners. And of course, getting out of the corners is really not difficult at all. But you don't need to rev the crap. I mean, at 4,000 RPM, not even full throttle, that's like half throttle, and it just rips itself out of the corner and goes. I can see why everyone is raving about the Super Duke. It really is a superb bike. I know I'm kind of late to the Super Duke party. I'd actually been planning on buying one of these for like a year, but the timing never quite worked out, and I had some setbacks with my business, so I couldn't quite pull the trigger on it until, well, middle of goddamn November. But now I have one, and I like it. I like it very much. So yeah, there's a 65-mile cruise on a Super Duke. It definitely does a great many things very well. Hey, did you like this video? Well, hit the like button. Leave me a comment if you want to, and if you want to see more videos like this one, go ahead and subscribe to the channel.